Hey Tom,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing today?
Yeah, not too bad. Sun's shining, so
The sun's shining, that helps, hey.
yeah, exactly.
How's lockdown life been for you?
Yeah, challenging to be honest. Big change for me in regards to kind of like work and business and lifestyle. Um, but I think it's been a good time to kind of reflect on everything in life, from like the reasons you do things, and yeah, I guess overall it's just trying to find positives to take away from it, however hard that can be at times. But yeah, I think generally most people I speak to, however hard they've found it, I think as well there's a lot you can take from it. I think it's just like anything in life, it's how you apply yourself. I think it's quite natural at the beginning, like everyone else. It was kind of just trying to understand what it meant. You know, everything happened so quickly in terms of kind of like going to work normally and doing your having your day-to-day life, and then literally being told that you can't leave your house for the foreseeable future. So I think first couple of weeks was kind of just understanding what that meant for my business, for all of my staff. So there's some big decisions to be made, and just to kind of understand what the roadmap was going to look like. And then I think about where we are now. I think it's more about probably looking at myself a little bit more in terms of you know what we're going to go back to and how we're going to go back and what's important and what isn't. I think if there's ever a time to kind of understand what's important and what isn't, it's through a pandemic like this. I think it makes you really self-analyze what you probably perceive to be, a good life, a successful life, or a life, within a career that you've put yourself in. So, yeah, I think obviously I've had different emotions through the time, some good, some bad. I think overall, like I said, you take out of it what you want.
Yeah, no, I feel that totally. You've been doing food demonstrations, haven't you?
Yeah, done a little bit of cooking. I think, like I said, I've got a small group of friends. Some of them you probably know. That I guess through this lockdown, we've kind of had a little group going, and honestly, it's been a breath of fresh air. Really, I think they've been extremely supportive of each other. All of us have. I think all of us have had different challenges, and I think all of us at times have tried to contribute to that group, and a lot of them wanted to learn a few bits and pieces around the kitchen, so I offered to help. So that was fun. Doing little bits of different challenges, different cooking. So, and for me, it's nice for me to probably cook in a very different way, more for just purely pleasure and fun, and in my house instead of going into work and it being very much focused around the creativity in the restaurant. It was more about just being in my kitchen at home and having fun.
Less pressure.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So, I think no pressure really, other than to be fair, I felt pressure in the sense of I wanted the guys to make something good. I didn't want them to
Yeah.
waste 2-3 hours of their day. And to be honest, they were amazing. Really, the level of application they showed, I was quite taken back actually, and how seriously they took it. And we started by just saying, "Oh, I'll do one," and then like 8 weeks later, we've done one every week. And I was like, "Okay, it's time for a break now. Time out." Break.
How
Um,
did you decide what you guys were going to cook, or were you combining it with the fitness? So were you doing stuff that was energy based, or what
no,
kind of?
not really. It wasn't combined with the fitness. Obviously, you probably saw like so Wayne Bridge was doing kind of fitness classes for us, which have been great too. I spent a lot of time training through this lockdown actually. Probably a little bit of self care on myself. But the cooking classes were just no. Actually, it was kind of like I asked them guys, what do you want to cook? And most of them came back. Obviously, it's all male in the group, so very male orientated food like curry and fried chicken and lasagna and steak. But I think overall, I just tried to teach them little tips and tricks that make make it easier for themselves to cook. I think some people are just scared of like, oh, I can't make that from scratch. I'll just buy it in a supermarket. When actually, if you show them one or two easy steps, it's pretty easy to do.
You grew up in Nottingham. Were your family foodies, or like what kind of got you into in the first place?
That word foodie is always like, when people say I'm a foodie, I'm like, what does that even mean? I wouldn't say my family were foodies. I think my mum always cooked home dinners. You know, we were fortunate in that sense. My mum would always cook a home cooked dinner, and like Sundays we'd always have a Sunday roast as a family. So I think food was always part of my life. I think when I look back, kind of my upbringing, you know, food was probably the one time where the family actually came together and all sat around the dinner table. You know, don't know about yourself, but I'm from a fairly big family. There was 5 of us, and all of a similar age. So when you get to kind of like, you know, 12 and onwards, everyone is kind of doing their own thing. We've got different classes at school, playing sports, seeing their friends. And I think, you know, the only time we really would sit down as a family together would be around the dinner table. So my mum was very big on making sure that we sat around the table and had dinner together, and she always cooked. So we were very fortunate in that sense. But I wouldn't say we were, you know, hugely foodie driven. I mean, we'd go to restaurants and stuff, but it was kind of like standard, you know, like on the weekend we might have a Chinese or something like that. But, you know, I think in overall, kind of like food was ingrained in us from an early age, just purely because my mum would cook a lot at home.
Right. See, I don't. You're saying about the whole foodie thing. You know, my parents are Italian, and I don't think I had a takeaway till I was about 15. Like everything was just like homegrown, home cooked. Like it was. And when my school friends used to come around, they'd just be like, "What is this? It's amazing, but like, what is it?" So.
Yeah, and I think that's a reflection of culture, probably. You know, I think there's the one thing we lack sometimes in this country, but we're getting better at it, in the sense of kind of like culture of food and, you know, what is homegrown and what is home cooked. I think we're getting better. I think England are getting better at that overall, and the education around food. But I think we fall down from a culture perspective. If you look at other countries, Italy's a great example. The same with probably the Spanish, Mexicans, etc. Like they have a real kind of identity in their food and culture, and it kind of breathes through into family life. Where I feel here in the UK, it's not so relevant.
Right. And are there countries that you've travelled to that have influenced how you cook now, or are there places that you haven't been to that you'd like to go to try out once we're allowed to travel again?
Yeah, I think firstly, I've been fortunate to travel to many places. A lot of the time, it's been with work or business, and of course, I'm always very open to understanding the food culture and the hows and whys of what they eat. I think, is there more places I'd like to visit? Absolutely. I think if this lockdown taught us anything, that actually the freedom to travel and express yourself and see other parts of the world is so precious. I think that's probably something that's, you know, been pushed to the forefront in regards to being able to see other things. I think it's just about the balance. Obviously, it's difficult when I go back to work to find time to do all of them things. But I think that it's about making time. But I'd love to go and see Mexico City, somewhere that's been on my list for a while.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Yeah, I think their food culture is amazing. So that's definitely somewhere I'd like to get to.
There's definitely a lack of choice for Mexican food in London, so there's a gap in the market there.
Sure. That's probably the biggest void in the London food scene is Mexican.
Yeah, that's what I like about being in LA. The Mexican food is always incredible.
Yeah, I can't remember. I went to a Mexican restaurant in LA a few years ago, and it was kind of like one of them that's like off the beaten track that no one really knows about unless you kind of get for a real local. We were fortunate enough to get kind of a tip off. We went down there and it was like literally in the middle of nowhere, and it was awesome.
Can you remember what it was called?
I can't remember, no.
It's a little secret. You just don't want to let me know.
No, I can't remember, honestly.
Let's talk about the fact that you got a Michelin star so young. Do you kind of still remember the day that you were awarded the Michelin star, and what criteria do you need to meet to get it?
Well, and first answer to your question, do I remember? Kind of remember. I obviously remember the day. I think that whole period of my life was very much a blur when I look back. I actually don't remember many details around probably the opening kind of 18 months of my restaurant. It was all very intense. But in regards to the particular day, yeah, I remember it. Of course, I think it's a day that you kind of fear and welcome all at the same time. It's kind of a weird feeling that you have. I got up probably around 5 a.m. I couldn't sleep. And back then, now they do an awards where you go and you sit together with other peers in your industry, and they do a big announcement on stage. Back when I got my star, it wasn't like that. They literally would just announce the guide through Twitter and the publication of the book. So I was on my own. I was sitting on a park bench near the restaurant, literally kind of refreshing my phone every 5 minutes, waiting for the guide.
How long had the restaurant been open?
It's been open about 4 or 5 months. We opened late April, and I think the guide then came out, I want to say early September or late September. So it was around 4, 5, 6 months. And I knew that obviously they would have to close the guide at some point to go to print, because obviously they have to print the guide. So I knew there was a very small window in terms of them being able to come to the restaurant and probably see what we do. But yeah, so I just was sitting on the bench, kind of refreshing it in the morning, and then it came up, and I was like scrolling down because it was kind of in alphabetical order, and there it was. We'd been awarded a Michelin star, and I guess, I don't know, it's a weird feeling because, you know, I'd spent my whole life surrounded by the kind of mystique of that guidebook and what it meant and the kind of accolade that it is. You know, I think that it's such a, you know, it's got so much history behind it, and I think if you ask any chef what's the true barometer of a restaurant, they will always say the Michelin Guide. So I think in that sense, obviously, there was a huge sense of pride, but I think also on the other side, because I think I put so much pressure on myself as an individual throughout my whole career, I think there was a sense of relief as well. Just in, you know, I think you prepare yourself for it not to happen. I think you have I think your relationship with that particular guide and Michelin, well, definitely for me, has changed throughout the years. You know, maybe with myself in terms of the maturity of myself as an individual, probably living through times like this, different circumstances, different pressures. From a business perspective, I think the relationship with it can change. But obviously, something I'm extremely proud of, and you know, the restaurant's retained its staff for 7 years now, and I think we've always been on the pursuit of trying to make the restaurant better. So, you know, I think that, you know, when I look back at that time particularly, I think that so many good things came out of us being awarded that accolade, and not only myself but my team and all of the individuals that worked with me and helped me achieve it and helped the restaurant achieve it. So, you know, it's a very positive time.
It's a fantastic achievement. And this is Restaurant Story. So why is the restaurant called Story? Restaurant Story in London. And yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
So the restaurant, you know, to be honest, the media kind of ran away with this like perception that like essentially every dish was based around a story, and some of them were. For example, you know, we have dishes that are based around like my love as a child for Paddington Bear and other kind of food memories and influences and where I grew up and all of that kind of things. And some dishes are just a representation of the season. or the best produce that we can find, and hopefully we cook that with integrity and intelligence. But the restaurant was called Story. Really, the narrative behind the bigger picture was that essentially I was telling my story. I spent 10, 15 years kind of dedicated to the craft of cooking. I've been very fortunate to work with some amazing chefs all over the world. I spent time in America with Thomas Keller, and then in Denmark with René, and obviously in London with Tom Aikens and Adam Byatt. And all of these guys were hugely influential in me finding my own path and my own style, and educating me not only about food, but also about restaurants and how to run them. And then when the time came for me to open my restaurant, I truly felt that it was me telling my story. And that's how the name came about. I decided on it extremely early on in my career, probably like 16, 17. I was like, I really like the name Story for a restaurant, and it never changed. And then, that goal was achieved like 25, I think I was, when the restaurant opened. So yeah, it was the whole meaning behind the name essentially was that when you come to the restaurant, in many ways, whether it's the style of service, the music you hear, the food that you eat, the culture that we've created inside the four walls of the restaurant is very much an influence of myself and my life story. And I think that for me, I always felt that when you put narrative around something and you gave a reason or a story of why you did it, the end product was always more powerful. So I think that's what we try and base our identity on at the restaurant. That makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have like certain quotes that kind of inspire you or keep you focused, or and from those people that you mentioned that you worked with, that they kind of made a big impact on how you set your stall out?
Yeah, I think I'm always motivated by other very successful people, peers in my own industry and people in other industries, whether that be in sport, music, fashion. I think, of course, obviously, all the chefs that I work for were extremely influential to me and inspired me. And I think, when I look at the last kind of 5, 6, 7 years of me trying to navigate through the industry and opening of Story in the restaurant, I think, all of the knowledge that I picked up and learned off the chefs that I worked for was kind of like, it was so important to myself. And now I think it's kind of switched roles where hopefully I feel I've built a team internally that drive me as much as I drive them. I have amazing group of staff that are extremely dedicated to the restaurant and to the business. And I think my job is to be the visionary and be the person that obviously lays down the challenges and the goals, but ultimately, that team now very much are the driving force behind what we do and why we do it.
And you've cooked with some impressive people, a huge list, but I'm going to go with Leo DiCaprio, for instance.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that you haven't cooked for that you would like to cook for? Or do you have like a list of people?
Yeah, I think there's a couple in my field that, when I look back over time in history, I have huge appreciation for. I think Marco Pierre White springs to mind. I think his early days, he really he set the kind of trend of what being I don't want to say the word rock and roll chef, but he was very much about, the purity of what cooking was, and kind of the expression. And that I think people, they underestimate how close chefs hold their craft to themselves and what it truly means to them. I think Marco was one of the very first to really show that and be successful at it. And I remember reading his book White in the early days and thinking about how kind of abrasive he was, but in such a creative way and in a way of always wanting to achieve, as something that I grasped very early on. I've always said that I never really wanted to be a chef. I think that through influences through my childhood and education, I made it a conscious decision probably when I was around 16, 17 that I wanted to achieve something in my life. And that happened to be in the medium of cooking. It wasn't set in stone. And then when I ingrained myself into kitchens, I realized how much you have to give of yourself. And I think Marco was an amazing representation of that. And I think that you learn so much more in a high intensity and a more volatile environment. I think that most high-end kitchens, and I'm not glorifying by any means here that they're aggressive. I just mean that when you work at a top level, especially in kitchens, that the pressure that's put on yourself and the team to deliver what they perceive to be excellence is, it's extreme, and you learn much quicker in an environment that's set like that. I think that, like I said, I think Marco was probably like the leader, particularly in our country, to lay that out. I think we spoke to many chefs. I think they'd agree with that. So he would definitely be someone that I'd like to cook for. I think in terms of celebrities and things like that, I think that's just become part and parcel now. Like, I've had so many great people come through the restaurant that are all extremely talented in their own fields, and it's always fun, and the kitchen get excited to cook for these guys when they come in, and they've seen them on TV or they've seen them in films, or they might be a sports star. Obviously, I'm massively into sports, so I think whenever we've had people come through that have been successful in the sporting field, that's always cool, because I feel that there's a lot in common in terms of what they've done in their career to get to where they are, and the dedication that's required and the discipline. So that's always cool. I think if I was to cook for anyone, like, I always love cooking for my parents. I think they're the biggest critics. My dad is very honest, sometimes too honest. I think there's something very beautiful in that. Obviously, my parents were a huge part of the reason why I am where I am today. They instilled an upbringing in me that was all about working hard. And my dad was a big advocate of that you would never achieve anything in your life unless you worked super hard and you were the first in and the last out. So, obviously that stayed with me forever, and I always feel a sense of pride when they get to the restaurant, which is nice. So I think overall, I enjoy cooking for all of our guests. I think is the bottom line, because we love what we do. Our job is to hopefully offer an experience that is like no other.
Yeah.
We work extremely hard as a group of people to do that, and that just isn't the food. That's the service, the environment, the atmosphere, the details, the sense of humanity that's required in top hospitality. It's not just a process. It's about getting to know the people that come into your restaurant and sharing that time with them. So I think overall, it's always nice to have big names come through the restaurant, of course. It's fun and exciting. Overall, I think everyone that walks through our front door is of massive importance to us, and we feel a huge level of responsibility to them to make sure we deliver on hopefully their expectation of us, which is something that we obviously take very seriously.
And do you like being cooked for too, or are you too much of a control freak?
No, I love food, so I love going out. I think that people always ask me, where do you go, or what do you eat when you're at home? And if I'm honest, I think that just like to kind of switch off. So I think it's more about the atmosphere and the people that I'm with. So like friends and family and loved ones is always great to, 9 times out of 10, that's the reason you're out, right?
Yeah.
It's for an occasion, or it's with someone that you care about, who's in your inner circle. So no, I'm pretty easy. I'm pretty laid back. Like, I'll go anywhere. I'll eat anything. And like everyone, I love a burger from time to time. I love pizza, but of course, I like great restaurants too. And I think the only thing is when I go to what I perceive as a great restaurant, or probably appear to myself. And of course, you look at things slightly differently. You're kind of looking at it more from like, oh, that's nice, or I like the way they did that, or because it's part of your industry. So we go to nice restaurants from time to time, but again, it's always difficult with a lot of restaurants are closed at the same time, or you've got to come out of your restaurant to go to a peer's restaurant. So normally for me, food is just about, like I said, having a good time, being with people that you care about. But yeah, overall, I think I'd like to eat out more. I've been fortunate. I've travelled and eaten in great restaurants, and you're always learning. I think that's the great thing about our industry is there's no right or wrong really. There is no rule book.
You like your sports. You mentioned music earlier as well. What is it? You said you obviously like your golf too. Do I recall you being a Man United fan?
I am a Man United fan. Yeah.
Yeah. Not holding that against you. So yeah, if you do, I know we've been forced into this period of chill out. So if you do get a chance to relax, what do you like to do?
I think obviously when I get time to myself, I think it's nice to try and relax. Like I said, I try and catch up with family and friends. I like to play sports, whether that be football or going to the gym or anything like that. I think is always nice. It's kind of takes you away from your day-to-day life. Like you find yourself ingrained in that.
Can you switch off? Are you able to just switch off, or do you find
I
that
find it
difficult?
very difficult. I've got better with age. I think if I look back 4 or 5 years ago, there was no off button, and there probably still isn't an off button. Switch it on, switch it off. I think it's always on for me. In some respects, I think now you just find ways of dealing with it better. So, like I said, taking a couple of hours out of my day to go to the gym or maybe play football. I've been very fortunate. I have good friends that play football that now have their own little things going on. I always join in and play with, so that's always fun. I love a good TV series or a film. It's always good to kind of, especially other things like looking at other sports stars and stuff when they bring out stuff on Netflix and Sky and things like that. It's always good to watch because I find a lot of inspiration from it.
Did you watch The Last Dance?
Yeah, it was amazing. Amazing. Probably the best sports documentary I've ever watched.
Yeah, it was so multifaceted, wasn't it? There was just so much to it.
Yeah, I think everything from like organization of a sporting brand to the commercial side to the emotions and the players side to the talent, obviously with Michael Jordan, and so much to take away from a documentary like that. And yeah, it was hugely inspiring to me. I've actually watched it twice over, so.
I feel like I've worn the wrong T-shirt today.
No, it's okay. Kobe's the man too, so it's all right. And no, I think obviously, looking at someone like Michael Jordan, and I think it's good for people to see that, it's not, you can be talented, and there's many talented people out there, but it takes way more than that. It takes an extreme drive and pressure that you put on yourself to achieve, and I think
you can relate to that.
Yeah, of course. I think look, winning comes at a price. Leadership comes at a price. You have to sacrifice so much. And I can relate to that for sure. And I think the biggest thing I took away from it was that he really wanted to win, obviously, but I think he really wanted his teammates to win as well, and he took responsibility for that. And that was something that really kind of hit home with me. I think about, we talked about the Michelin Star conversation and the restaurant achieving accolades, and I really wanted that, of course, but now I actually want it more for my team probably than myself. And of course, I want them to be beside me when things like that happen, because you have to sacrifice so much to get that. And I think, watching The Last Dance was a real indicator to me that, being in the moment is extremely important. And I think this time as well, through everything that's happened with lockdown and trying to stay in the moment is probably one of the biggest kind of, I guess, the biggest achievements that you can give yourself if you can stay in the moment and not always look for the next thing and look forward and just try and be in the moment. I think is really important. I think that's how Michael played basketball. He was always in the moment, and that's the reason that he always achieved. You know, he said he never worried about missing a shot he hadn't taken. So many players, I think, did, and that's why they missed. And I think when I look at his mentality, it was just amazing to kind of sit back and take all of that in and analyze it in your own way and your own interpretation of it. But yeah, it was an amazing show. You know, I took a lot away from it. It was very inspiring and couldn't have come at a more poignant time, probably, for a lot of people. So yeah, that was cool. But yeah, downtime for me is just that normal stuff, you know, trying to keep back, relax, whether that's a film, a movie, TV series, you know, playing some sport, staying fit, going on a walk, bike ride, you know, just kind of trying to switch off, but knowing that you're not really switching off, but just staying active. And you know, I think when you've always had goals, it's difficult when that gets taken away from you. You have to kind of adapt and adjust your goals. You know, I've always been someone, I have daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, but they've always been focused around my business. And then obviously that was taken away from me. So you have to kind of shift mentality. So I had to set myself different goals through this period. But I think, you know, it's brought a lot of self-awareness, and I think hopefully for the better, not the worse. So, you know, like I said, we take away from this what we can.
And with having a little bit more time, have you thought about any more tattoos? I see you've got a few.
No, that game's gone now for me, I think.
You're done?
Yeah, maybe. I just, misspent youth, maybe. No, obviously my tattoos are all very meaningful, and they're like an expression of either a time in my life or a way that I felt. And I don't regret any of them. People always say, you know, and I've got them on my hands, etc. And I think obviously the acceptance of tattoos has changed a lot over the last kind of 5 or 10 years. But no, I think for me, in terms of getting any more, it's not on my radar at the minute. But you never know. Like, I'm quite spontaneous, so I may just
let's go and get some done together.
Yeah, I should just go and get a tattoo, right? So
you've left space. You've got space. Yeah.
Yeah, there's space like in here and stuff. So, but no, I think that's just the creative mind of myself. You know, I've always been very visual and like to express myself that way. So I think obviously tattoos is a big part of probably that. And yeah, like I said, they all have meaning. So,
have you got a favourite on there so far?
I don't know if I have a favourite per se. I think, you know, like I said, all of them have pretty personal meaning and are there for a reason. So when I look at them, it's weird because unless someone asks you the question, I very rarely like look at them. And then when someone brings up the conversation, it's like, oh yeah, well, have that for that and have that for that. But no, I don't think I have a favourite.
Okay, I've only got one. I've got some catching up to do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
That's it there. Look.
It's pretty small as well.
I feel like I've just been tattoo shamed by Tom Sellers.
Oh.
I want to ask you, I know you did the Great British Menu, and you do various kind of, I've seen you on the Saturday morning cookery. Would you ever do reality TV like I'm a Celebrity or Strictly Come Dancing or SAS or anything like that?
I think answer to that question is that I think it depends what show it is and whether I feel that I would take something out of it. That'd be the reason or the decision of me doing it. For SAS, actually, when you said that, I think so. I've had a few friends that have been on the show. So the series just gone. Locksmith from Rudimental, who's a good friend of mine. He was on it and actually won it. had a few conversations with him about it, and so has Wayne Bridges also done it. And they both said that it was such an amazing experience, one that was
obviously. It looks so hard.
Yeah, they said obviously in terms of like the challenge physically and mentally, it's pretty brutal. So I think something like that appeals to me purely because I think, like you said, talking about adjusting goals and, you know, having the opportunity to do something like that. Obviously, not everyone gets that kind of opportunity. So I think something like that obviously would appeal to myself. I think other ones that are more just reality for the sake of reality, like I guess the kind of Strictly and maybe a little bit like this, I'm a Celebrity, although I kind of like the whole idea of being in the jungle. But I mean, they're not on my radar. I never became a chef or did TV because I had this desire to become, I guess, noticed or famous, which is such a shit word for me. But I think if it's a byproduct of me achieving in my career, and obviously the Great British Menu and Saturday Morning Kitchen have all been great experiences, and I don't mind like the whole screen thing. I find it quite fun. But yeah, no desire really to go out there and do it. But you know, never say never. I actually did tell my management probably actually when the SAS show was on. I was like, yeah, I'd definitely be up for doing this. He came back and he said, well, it's in April next year when they do it. I said, okay, well, you know, maybe we'll just keep it on the back burner and maybe that would be something fun to do.
Oh, great. We'll keep an eye out for that then.
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like I've just got an exclusive.
No, it's not at all. It's not an exclusive. But that was me showing my desire. That probably my management will reach out and they'll be like, who's that? No. You never know. No, like, that show looks fun. Like, I think you have to push yourself to a place that you've probably not gone before, and that appeals to me. And I feel like I definitely take things away from it that I put into my daily work back in my industry. So I feel like the whole kind of military and kitchen environment, there's a lot of similarities with like, you know, the way in which the hierarchy works and the dedication and things like that. So it does appeal to me on many levels. I think it's like, I don't know, for me, like, I think it's really important that you, like, whenever I like speak to people, have conversations, I think it's important that you're really true to who you are. I think it's really nice when people actually want to just take the time to talk to you like this on a one-to-one basis and, you know, hear your experiences firsthand. I think you get so many, you know, so many people now want to share things secondhand or even further than that. And I think that, you know, it can be a big disservice to that individual. And it's always nice when people, like I said, they want to take the time to hear it from you. So I think that's important in a time where, you know, you look at everything that's happening in the world, and it's so important with the way that you communicate with others and the way that you represent yourself. So yeah, no, it's been fun doing this.